This is not a random moment, and you did not wander here by accident. Right now, something is being activated, not loudly but strong enough to make your soul pause and listen. You may be used to doubting everything, even yourself, but there is one truth you cannot deny. If nothing were calling you, you would not be here. You did not come out of simple curiosity. You came because a very deep part of you is tired of living as if you were only a spectator in your own life. There are days you wake up and everything feels fine, but beneath that fine is a space you cannot quite name. Not sadness, not exactly pain, just a feeling of waiting for something you do not know when it will arrive. And then this moment appears, as if someone gently knocked on an inner door you locked a long time ago. You have wondered why you always feel different, even when you do not try to be. Why the paths that seem easy for others make you feel suffocated. Why you cannot settle for simple answers, for ready-made patterns. Not because you are difficult and not because you are ungrateful, but because your soul knows there is something that has not yet been lived. There are nights when you lie still in the dark, not thinking of anything specific, yet there is a strange pressure in your chest, as if your heart remembers a different rhythm, as if a very old memory is trying to rise, but your mind will not allow it to take shape. You call it tiredness, stress, overload. But deeper than that, it is the sign of a calling that has been delayed for too long. You were not chosen because you are perfect. You were chosen because you have endured long enough to no longer want to live superficially. What you have been through, the times you thought you had gone the wrong way, were not wrong at all. They were necessary detours for you to learn how to listen, how to stand firm, how not to lose yourself when everything around you keeps changing. Not a single tear fell without being remembered. Not a single moment of silent endurance passed without leaving a trace. There were moments when you prayed without words, only a sigh within. You did not ask for miracles, you only hoped for meaning. And it was in moments like these that a silent covenant was activated. Psalm 25:14 says, "The Lord reveals his covenant to those who fear him." That covenant is not a distant promise, but a gradual unveiling of who you truly are when you are ready to see it. You may not be able to name it yet, but your soul recognizes it clearly. A door is opening, and what makes you restless is not fear, but the feeling that if you do not step through, you will continue to live an incomplete life. This is not a threat, and it is not an empty promise. This is the truth standing before you, patient, not forcing, but not disappearing either. You have tried to blend into the crowd, to please, to dim your light so you would not stand out. But the more you did that, the more you faded. Not because you are weak, but because you were moving against a current that was placed within you long ago. You were not born to live small. You were born to live true. And living true sometimes requires stopping, facing yourself, admitting that there are parts of you that have never been named. Right now, you may feel your heart slowing down or beating a little faster. You may sense a strange stillness, as if the outside world has stepped back so you can hear the inner voice more clearly. That is not imagination. That is a moment of crossing, where you are no longer pulled by the past and not yet thrown into the future. You are standing at the exact meeting point between who you have been and who you are becoming. Not everyone recognizes this moment. Many will pass by, will hear but not listen, will feel but not stop. But you are different, not because you are more special, but because you are more ready to look directly at the question you have avoided for so long. If you do not live in alignment with the calling within you, then what are you living for? You do not need to understand everything right now. You do not need a clear plan or complete answers. The only thing asked of you in this moment is honesty. Honesty with the feeling rising within you. Honesty with the vibration taking place. Honesty with the truth that you know this is not a generic message. This journey does not begin with you doing something great. It begins with you allowing yourself to stop and not turn away, allowing yourself to listen until the end, allowing yourself to admit that something is being awakened. And when you do that, even in silence, you have already placed one foot on the path your soul has been waiting a very long time to walk. When you do not turn away, when you allow yourself to stay for one more breath, the first thing that happens is not a blinding light or clear answers. The first thing that happens is that truth begins to rise. The truth about what has been suppressed, ignored, misnamed for a very long time. You begin to realize that the unease you carry does not come from the outside world, but from living misaligned with what you know is right. You were once very good at adapting, so good that you forgot what it feels like to live without tension. You learned to smile when you were not okay, to stay silent when you needed to speak, to accept roles that did not fit just to keep the peace. And over time, you called that maturity, but your soul calls it delay. A delay in living according to what was planted within you from the beginning. There are things you have prayed for over many years, yet they seemed unanswered. You wondered what you did wrong, what you lacked, or whether you were not good enough. But the truth is that some prayers are not answered immediately, not because they are denied, but because you were not yet in the right position to receive them, not because you were unworthy, but because what is given requires a version of you strong enough to carry it forward. Deep within, you have always known that something is waiting to be opened. Not a career, not fame, not recognition, but the feeling of living in your own rhythm, of walking without comparing, of breathing without asking permission. And when you stand still long enough in this moment, you begin to realize that the change you are waiting for does not come from the outside. It begins with the courage to look directly at what is rising within you. A voice echoes, not from the outside, but from a very old spiritual memory within you. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? Isaiah 43:19. This new thing is not a completely different plan, but a different way of living. No longer postponing yourself, no longer waiting for the perfect time, no longer asking whether you are allowed. You begin to see more clearly the moments that once seemed meaningless, the rejections, the broken relationships, the turns that forced you to start over. They were not proof of your failure, but signs that the old path no longer fit. You tried to keep walking on a road that was not meant for you, and your soul pulled you back, sometimes in very painful ways. You may have thought that if you tried a little harder, sacrificed a little more, stayed silent a little longer, everything would be fine. But that only pulled you further away from yourself. And now, in this quiet moment, you begin to understand that the most important loyalty is not loyalty to the expectations of others, but loyalty to the truth within you. Not everyone will recognize what is happening to you. Some will think you are changing too much. Some will say you have become distant, hard to understand, but they do not see the battles you have fought in silence. They do not hear the words you whispered in the dark. They do not know that every step that brought you here had its cost. You are standing at a very thin boundary between returning to the familiar old life and stepping into something without a clear shape. What makes you hesitate is not a lack of faith, but the knowing that once you step through, you cannot pretend you never heard this call. Once you have seen the truth, you cannot continue to live in compromise without feeling empty. You may be waiting for a clearer sign, a louder voice, an event strong enough to force you to change. But what you are experiencing right now is that sign. Not as thunder and lightning, but as a persistent pull that does not disappear, no matter how much you try to ignore it. It returns in the quietest moments, when you are no longer distracted by outside noise. You do not need to chase what is opening. What is asked is simply that you do not turn your back on it. Allow it to come closer. Let it make you uncomfortable, confused, even a little afraid, because every real transformation begins by breaking a false sense of safety, and you have lived in that safety for far too long. There are prayers you have forgotten that you once prayed. There are desires you buried because you thought they were unrealistic. But nothing has been forgotten. Everything has been kept, waiting for the right time. And that time is not when your mind feels ready, but when your soul can no longer pretend it does not hear. Right now, you may not yet be able to name the journey ahead, but you know one thing very clearly. You no longer want to live as you did before, and that truth alone is already the beginning of something completely new. Not loud, not dramatic, but real enough to change the direction of your entire life. There is a very special moment when you realize you are no longer listening to the outside noise as much as before. Not because the world has become quieter, but because inside you, a different point of support has begun to form. You hear fewer explanations, yet you hear more clearly the quiet calling that has always been there. It does not push, it does not argue, it simply stands still and waits for you to turn and face it. You begin to understand why all this time you have felt as if you were standing at the threshold of something, but never truly stepping through, not because you lacked courage, but because you became used to asking for permission. Permission to be yourself. Permission to change. Permission to step out of patterns that allowed you to be accepted but not truly alive. And then one day, you realize there is no one left to ask except yourself. There are mornings when you wake up and feel a very gentle pull, but very real. Not a pull to do something great, but a pull to listen more closely, to pay attention to the first thoughts that appear when you open your eyes, to notice the things that make your heart stir, even when your mind quickly pushes them aside. You begin to realize that a true calling never shouts. It is patient, and it returns until you are ready to stop. In that stopping, a deep confirmation begins to take shape. Without anyone saying it out loud, you know this is not meant for everyone, and that does not make you feel above anyone. It only makes you feel more responsible for yourself. Because once you have heard, you cannot pretend you never did. Once you have felt it, you cannot return to living superficially without feeling empty. A sentence becomes very clear, as if it were placed right in the center of your being. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. John 10:27. This is not a promise of an easy road, but a confirmation of a connection. You are not left alone to guess your way forward. You do not have to invent meaning for your life. There is guidance, but it only opens when you choose listening instead of chasing. You may notice that since you began paying closer attention to inner movements, some outer things have started to change. Not immediately, but enough for you to notice. Some conversations no longer hold your interest. Some old concerns begin to fade. You do not hate them. You are simply no longer on the same frequency. And that once made you feel guilty. But now you begin to understand that change is not betrayal of the past. It is respect for the present truth. You may be wondering whether you are imagining too much, whether this feeling of being called, of being chosen, is just temporary emotion. But if you look back, you will see it did not come once and disappear. It returned many times, in many different forms, in your most exhausted moments, in the moments when you thought you had accepted a life that was just enough. It does not leave you alone, not to disturb you, but to remind you that you have not yet lived your full part. And right here, this story does not ask you to believe blindly. It only invites you to observe yourself. If there is something in these words that makes you pause longer than usual, that makes you not want to scroll past like everything else, then that is already a sign. You do not need to prove it to anyone. But if you want, you can leave a small trace, a line of sharing, a quiet confirmation that you are hearing, not to be seen, but to remind yourself that you chose to stay with this calling. And if you sense that this journey continues, that there are deeper layers waiting to open, then staying, following, listening a little more is not a dramatic decision. It is like choosing not to close the door when light begins to enter the room. You do not need to understand where that light comes from. You only need to know that it makes everything clearer. You were not called to stand alone on some peak. You were called to walk in your truth. And when you do that, those who need the light you carry will find you. Not because you try to become someone, but because you no longer try to hide yourself. True guidance does not take you away from who you are. It brings you back to what has always been there. Right now, you may not know what the next step is, but you know very clearly what you no longer want to continue. And sometimes, that is all you need to begin a new journey, not with a map, but with trust, not with a detailed plan, but with full presence in each moment. You have heard, you have stopped, and you have chosen not to turn away. That is enough for everything to keep unfolding in its own way, not rushed, not forced, but very real. And as you continue to walk, one step at a time, you will realize that you were never truly walking alone on this path. When you continue walking with the awareness that has just begun to form, the world around you does not change immediately, but the way you see it does. You begin to notice that a trembling is happening everywhere, not only in your personal life, but in the very breath of this era. What was once considered stable now feels fragile. What was once trusted is now questioned. And in the middle of that chaos, you sense very clearly an unusual calling, not to escape, but to stand firm. You are not pulled out of this world. You are placed right in the middle of it, with all the sensitivity and clarity you once thought were your weaknesses. Before, you may have wished you could feel less, think less deeply, be less affected by the pain of others. But now, you begin to see that these very things are why you are here. You do not look at the world through a thick glass of indifference. You look directly, and you feel. There are days when you open your eyes and the air feels heavier than usual. News pours in, people rush. Fear spreads faster than truth. You may feel small before all of this, yet at the same time you feel a strange steadiness, as if inside you there is a pillar you had never touched before. You do not need to argue to prove you are right. You do not need to raise your voice to be heard. Your presence alone, when you stand in the right place, already makes a difference. You begin to understand that light does not work the way noise does. Light does not try to overpower darkness. It simply appears, and when it appears, darkness no longer holds the same power. A sentence echoes clearly within you, like an undeniable confirmation. You are the light of the world. A city shimmered on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. You are not called to hide yourself. You are also not called to perform. You are called to be present exactly as you are, without shrinking, without exaggerating. You may have learned to dim yourself so as not to cause discomfort. Learn to keep your opinions to yourself to avoid being misunderstood. Learn to lower your intuition to fit in more easily. But all of that begins to feel impossible to continue, not because you want to stand out, but because you can no longer bear the feeling of betraying yourself. Each time you stay silent when you need to speak, each time you turn away when you need to stand, something inside you tightens, and now you no longer want to live that way. You were not chosen to fix the whole world. You were chosen to stand in your right place within it. Maybe that is in your family, where you are the only one who refuses to repeat old patterns. Maybe it is in your work, where you no longer want to trade truth for safety. Maybe it is in relationships, where you begin to speak what you truly feel, even if your voice trembles. You do not know where these choices will lead, but you know very clearly that returning to the old way is no longer an option. You also begin to realize that not everyone will understand this change. Some will say you are too sensitive. Some will say you think too much. Some will tell you to be more realistic, but they do not hear what you hear. They do not feel the shift happening within you, and that does not make them wrong. It only means they are on a different stretch of the journey. You are not called to convince them. You are called to be faithful to what you have recognized. In an increasingly noisy world, choosing to live more slowly, more truthfully, more intentionally is in itself an act of courage. You do not need to announce it. It shows in how you listen, in how you respond, in what you choose to keep and what you choose to release. You begin to see that peace does not come from controlling everything, but from knowing where you stand. There are moments when you feel a gentle sadness as you realize this path may leave you with fewer companions. But even in that sadness, there is a new freedom. You no longer have to carry connections built on pretending. You no longer have to maintain conversations that leave you empty. Instead, you learn to value silence, to value connections that are fewer but real. You begin to understand that light does not always bring comfort. Sometimes it reveals what others do not want to see, and that can make them turn away. But true light does not apologize for shining. It simply continues to do what it was born to do. And so do you, not with hardness, but with clarity. You do not need to know the entire road ahead. You only need to know that the next step must be placed with honesty. And when you do that, each piece will find its place. Not in the way you once imagined, but in a way that fits the person you are becoming. A person who no longer runs from the light within. You may sense that when you stand in the right place, it is not only you who benefits. The atmosphere around you also shifts. Conversations grow deeper, questions become more real, and sometimes, simply by being present, others begin to dare to live more truthfully as well. That is not power, that is resonance. And as you continue walking in this awareness, you will realize this is not a short phase. This is a lasting adjustment, a new way of living, where you no longer deny what you see, what you know, what you are called to carry. You stop looking for light outside. You begin to realize that the light has been within you for a very long time, only waiting for you to be brave enough to stop hiding it. When the inner light within you begins to grow clearer, your body is the first place to respond, not with pure excitement, but with sensations that are very real, very human. There are mornings when you wake up with a strange source of energy, as if you slept deeply even though the time was short. And there are also days when you feel heavy for no clear reason, as if carrying an unseen weight. You once worried that something was wrong, but the truth is that something is being rearranged. You have grown used to separating body and mind, continuing to move forward even when you were empty inside. You called that responsibility, maturity, but when the soul begins to awaken, it no longer accepts being neglected. It demands attention. It demands honesty. And your body becomes the place where two worlds meet, where the old has not fully left and the new has not yet settled. There are moments when you feel tired without knowing why, not because you are doing too much, but because inside you is changing too quickly. Old beliefs, old reflexes, old ways you once used to protect yourself are all being brought into the light. Not to blame, but to be reviewed. What still fits is kept. What is no longer true begins to crack. And that process is never gentle. You may feel a tightness in your chest, as if something wants to open but has not found its way yet. There are moments when you have to breathe more deeply than usual. as if to keep yourself from being pulled away. Before, you would try to ignore these signals, labeling them as tiredness or stress. But now, you begin to listen. And when you listen, you realize this is not weakness. This is restructuring. You are going through something not everyone dares to go through, allowing the deepest part of yourself to speak. And when that happens, nothing keeps its old shape. The questions you once avoided now return, not to frighten you, but to be answered honestly. You begin to see that many of your past choices came from fear rather than truth, not because you were weak, but because you did not yet know you had the right to choose differently. In this ordered chaos, a powerful image begins to emerge, not an image of collapse, but of resurrection. O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Ezekiel 37:4. This is not spoken to the dead, but to the parts of you that have been forgotten for too long. The dreams you buried, the emotions you locked away, the abilities you doubted. They did not disappear. They were only waiting to be called by name. You begin to realize that what you called burnout is actually the soul resisting a life that no longer fits. You were not born to live in constant depletion. You were born to carry life. And when you do not live in alignment with that, your body speaks, not to punish you, but to warn you, not to stop you, but to redirect you. You may be learning to care for yourself in a new way, not as a trend, but as respect. You begin to rest when needed, without guilt. You begin to let your body move, not to achieve, but to release. You begin to notice your breath, your heartbeat, the quiet moments, not because you are becoming weaker, but because you are strong enough to no longer prove that you are always fine. You may also notice that long suppressed emotions begin to surface. Sadness without a clear reason, sudden anger, greater sensitivity to the words of others. Before, you would try to control or deny them, but now you learn to let them pass. You understand that emotions are not enemies. They are messages, and when you listen, they complete their task and move on. This process may make you feel lost, but in truth, you are moving in the right direction. It is just that this road has no familiar signs. It asks you to trust intuition more than logic, to trust feeling more than approval, to trust the inner rhythm more than outer pressure. And that requires a different kind of courage. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady. You do not need to rush through this stage. There is no reward for enduring faster. There is value in full presence. Each time you pause to breathe, to feel, to not abandon yourself, you are building a new foundation, a foundation not based on force, but on agreement between body, mind, and soul. You may realize that you are no longer interested in chasing the old pace of life, no longer wanting to fill every empty space with activity, no longer fearing silence as before, because in that silence, you begin to hear your true heartbeat. Not perfect, not absolutely stable, but alive. And that is what you have been missing for a long time. You are learning to trust that resurrection does not always come in the form you expect. Sometimes it comes as dissolution. Sometimes it begins with admitting that you cannot continue as you were. And in that admission, a new strength is born. Not the strength to brace yourself, but to release what is no longer needed. You are not broken. You are not falling behind. You are being reshaped. And even if this feeling makes you tired, even afraid, remember that no resurrection happens without a moment when dry bones begin to tremble. What you are experiencing is not a sign to turn back. It is a sign that what is inside you is still alive, still responding to the call. And as you continue to stay with this process, without rushing to fix, without trying to control, you will begin to feel a new steadiness. Not because everything has become clear, but because you no longer abandon yourself in the midst of transformation. You are learning how to move with change instead of resisting it. and that is a skill that will carry you very far on this journey. When you have stayed long enough with the movements inside you, something begins to become clear that before you only sensed vaguely. The small signs around you no longer appear random. They repeat. They return right when you are most uncertain. Numbers, coincidences, words you overhear by chance, yet they touch exactly what you are thinking. You used to brush them off, calling them coincidence, but now you can no longer ignore them. One number stands out more than the rest, not because it is mysterious, but because it carries a very familiar feeling. 777, each time it appears, whether on a clock, in a sequence of numbers, or in an ordinary situation, you feel as if someone has just nodded at you, not to boast about anything, but to confirm that you are moving in the right rhythm. 777 is not a promise of ease. It is a mark of awakening, of the soul beginning to remember why it is here. This number does not come to pull you away from reality, but to draw you deeper into it. It reminds you that the path you are on is not the product of impulse or temporary emotion. There is a sacred order at work, even if you cannot yet see the whole picture. 777 is a reminder that you are not just changing habits or thoughts. You are shifting into another level of awareness, where you begin to live from the inside out, instead of letting the world decide your rhythm. You may notice that along with the appearance of these signs, a part of you becomes more sensitive, not weaker, but more refined. You sense when something is no longer right, even if you cannot explain it immediately. You also sense when a choice, though the outcome is unclear, carries a deep peace within it. Before, you might have ignored that feeling to choose what felt safer. Now you begin to trust it more. An important shift is taking place in how you make decisions. You no longer ask so much whether something makes sense by other people's standards. You begin to ask whether it is true for you. And that question does not come from selfishness, but from respect for the life moving within you. You realize that each time you go against your intuition, you pay with a sense of heaviness. And each time you trust it, even when the road is unclear, you feel lighter. You also begin to see that not everyone will understand how you see the world now. Some will laugh when you speak about signs. Some will say you are over-interpreting. But you no longer feel the need to explain or convince, because what you are experiencing is not meant to be proven, but to be lived. It does not separate you from reality. It brings you into deeper presence with each moment. 777 appears like a seal, not for you to cling to it, but to remind you that you are being guided, not controlled, but accompanied. There is a great difference between the two. You do not lose your freedom of choice. On the contrary, you are learning to choose with greater awareness. And as you do, you begin to see that you are not as alone as you once thought. You may have noticed that when you live in alignment with what is inside you, your encounters begin to change as well. You meet people who say exactly what you need to hear, even though they have no idea where you are on your journey. You come across ideas that open your heart instead of closing it. You are no longer drawn to things that only distract you. You are drawn toward what makes you clearer. In that clarity, a very gentle reminder arises within you, more like an invitation than a command. If there is a number, a sign, a moment that resonates with you most, acknowledge it. Maybe by sharing it, maybe simply by naming it within yourself. Speaking it out does not make it more real, but it makes you more present in your own journey. It is how you say that you are no longer ignoring what is guiding you. You begin to understand that this journey is not only about personal growth, it carries a deeper sacred dimension, where each step you take has an impact beyond what you can see. When you live in truth, you create space for others to dare to live more honestly as well, not through advice, but through presence. Not through theory, but through the way you walk through difficulty without losing yourself. 707 reminds you that awakening is not a destination. It is a way of living. A way you choose to listen, choose to respond, choose to pause when needed, and choose to move forward when the time comes. It does not remove the challenges of life. It helps you walk through them with deeper trust. You no longer need everything to be certain before you move. You move because you know you are not walking alone. There may be days when you doubt everything again. There may be moments when you feel you imagined too much. And then the signs appear once more, not to convince you, but to remind you of the very real peace you feel when you live in alignment with yourself. Slowly, you learn to trust that peace more than you trust fear. You are not called to chase signs. You are called to live in a way that you become a sign of awakening, a sign of honesty, a sign of a person who no longer abandons the inner voice. And when you do that, numbers, coincidences, and external confirmations become less important, because what matters most has already been established within you. You are entering a phase where guidance no longer comes mainly from the outside. It comes from a deep agreement between you and the sacred movement within you. You do not need to understand everything to continue. You only need to keep listening and walking with honesty. And that is enough for the next door to begin opening. When you have gone far enough on this path, a very strange feeling begins to appear. Not fear, not exactly sadness, but a gentle distance from things that once felt very familiar. Conversations that used to make you feel full now feel heavy. Spaces that once felt safe now make it hard to breathe. You do not hate them, but you no longer belong to them in the same way. And this confuses you because you did not try to change. You simply cannot return to how things were. You begin to realize that you no longer have the strength to pretend. Pretend you are fine when you are not. Pretend to agree when something inside you resists. Pretend to be satisfied with versions of life that deep down you know are incomplete. Pretending once helped you survive, but now it begins to drain your life force. And your soul, once awakened, no longer accepts that cost. There are people who were once very close who now feel distant, not because of major conflict, but because you are no longer moving to the same rhythm. There are relationships that do not break. They simply fall quietly behind. Before, you would try to hold on, try to explain, try to keep everything intact. Now you begin to see that not every letting go is a loss. Some are a release. Some are the way you keep moving forward without dragging the past behind you. The hardest part of this phase is not loneliness, but guilt. Guilt because you no longer match other people's expectations. Guilt because you need space. Guilt because you say no more often. But every time you try to go back to please others, your body responds immediately. More tired, more heavy. And you begin to understand that your body is standing on the side of truth, even when your mind still hesitates. You are not being pushed out of the world. You are being set apart so you can see more clearly. There is a great difference between being isolated and being separated. Isolation makes you smaller. Separation makes you clearer. And what you are experiencing is not punishment. It is a necessary reordering. So you are no longer dissolved into voices that make you forget who you are. In this quiet space, you begin to hear more clearly very subtle movements. Things once hidden by busyness now become visible. You realize you have been carrying too much that was not yours. Beliefs you did not choose. Fears passed down to you. Roles you accepted just to avoid disappointing others. And little by little, these layers begin to fall away. Not loudly, not dramatically. They simply can no longer stay. A sentence arises very softly but very clearly, like a new standard being set within you. Blessed are the pure in heart, for shall see God. Matthew 5:8. This purity is not perfection, but wholeness. No longer divided, no longer living half in truth and half in fear, no longer saying one thing and living another. As you begin to live with this unity, the outer world may feel more confusing, but inside you grows quieter. You may notice that you need more time alone, not because you dislike people, but because you are learning how to listen. And to listen, you need silence. You no longer fill every empty space with noise, with screens, with packed schedules. You begin to value moments of doing nothing, not out of laziness, but because in those moments, you feel yourself returning to yourself. You may also begin to see more clearly what no longer fits in your environment. Habits that once helped you escape your feelings no longer work. Things that once excited you now leave only emptiness. And this is not because you have lost joy, but because your inner standard has changed. You are no longer easily satisfied by surface things. You are seeking something more real. The truth is that not everyone will stay when you change, and that hurts. There is no need to deny it. There are days when you miss your old versions, miss the simplicity of not having to question everything. But then you remember the emptiness of those days, and you know you cannot go back. Not because you have gone too far, but because you have gone deep enough that you can no longer deceive yourself. You are not called to cut everything out of your life. You are called to discern what nourishes you. Keep it. What makes you shrink, release it. And this process requires honesty more than courage. Courage can come from adrenaline, honesty does not. It comes from accepting the loss of comfort in order to keep truth. You begin to see that as you become more honest with yourself, the right people begin to appear, even if slowly. Conversations grow deeper. New connections require less explanation. You no longer have to over-explain who you are, you simply are, and that, by itself, is enough. You may still be in this in-between space, where you no longer fully belong to the old place, but cannot yet see the new one clearly. This can make you feel suspended, but this suspension is not aimless. It is the space between two breaths, where you are being realigned before moving on. You are not abandoned in this space. You are being held there long enough to release what is no longer needed. You do not need to force yourself to understand this phase completely. You only need to respect it. Respect the tiredness. Respect the need for quiet. Respect the tears without clear reason, because all of these are signs that you are living more truthfully, not becoming weaker. You are learning how to live without hiding from yourself. And as you continue walking with a growing clarity in your heart, you will begin to see things you could not see before, not because the world has changed, but because you have stopped looking at it through the fog of compromise. The path ahead may not yet have a clear shape, but you know one thing with certainty. You are moving in the right direction because you are no longer moving against yourself. There is a stage when you can no longer name where you are. You are no longer the old version of yourself, but the new one has not clearly appeared yet. You stand between two rhythms of life, as if everything familiar has dissolved, while a new form is still being shaped from within. That feeling is not comfortable. It makes you doubt. It makes you wonder if you have gone too far. But the truth is, you are not lost. You are moving through a process that every rebirth must pass through. Inside you, very old layers are falling away. Layers you put on early in life just to survive. The role of being strong when you were not ready. The role of being understanding when you were not understood. The role of staying silent when your voice was not welcomed. Those layers once protected you, and you are grateful for them. But they were never meant to carry you this far. Now they begin to dissolve, not because you are weaker, but because you no longer need them. You may notice that you have become more sensitive. Small things can move you deeply. An old song tightens your chest. A familiar scent brings back memories you thought were gone. A casual conversation makes you want to cry without knowing why. Before, you might have blamed yourself for being too emotional. Now you begin to understand this is not a loss of control, it is a release. What has been held in for too long is finally finding a way out. There are moments when you feel tired in a very different way. Not tired from doing too much, but tired because something inside you is shifting deeply, as if the entire old system is being dismantled to be rebuilt from the foundation. You may sleep more or struggle to sleep at all. Sometimes you want complete solitude, sometimes you long for real connection. Not surface level, all of this is a sign that you are in a deep process of restructuring. You are not breaking down, you are dissolving so you can be reshaped. And that process always includes a phase of chaos, where nothing feels certain. Yet in this uncertainty, you learn something essential. You are no longer clinging to old definitions of who you are. You no longer have to be the one who is always fine, always strong, always has the answers. You allow yourself not to know, and that not knowing, instead of weakening you, opens a very honest space. You may realize that things which once frightened you no longer hold the same power, not because they disappeared, but because you changed how you stand before them. You no longer run away, and you no longer fight. You stand still and look directly. And when you do, many fears dissolve on their own. Not all of them, but enough for you to keep moving without being frozen. You may also feel as if you are losing parts of your old identity. Titles that once defined you no longer fit. Goals that once drove you forward no longer pull you with the same force. This can feel unsettling, but the truth is, you are not losing your identity. You are releasing labels that no longer reflect who you are becoming. And the space they leave behind is not emptiness. It is room for something new to take shape. During this phase, you learn the value of not rushing to label everything. Not every emotion needs immediate explanation. Not every question needs an instant answer. Some things only need to be felt, moved through, allowed to exist. When you stop trying to control the process, you begin to sense a deeper intelligence guiding you, not through commands, but through rhythm. You may notice that your reactions have slowed. You no longer rush into arguments to defend your views. You no longer feel the need to prove you are right. Instead, you observe more, you listen more, and you begin to understand that not every battle requires your presence. This new maturity does not come from knowing more, but from knowing what no longer needs to be carried. You may be in a very quiet space now, where there are few external signs to confirm that you are moving forward, yet inside, something is being arranged with great care, like a seed beneath the soil. Roots forming before any sprout appears. If you try to pull it up to check, you interrupt the process. What is needed now is not forceful action, but trust. You do not need to explain what you are going through to anyone if you do not want to. Not everyone has the capacity to understand this process, and you do not need their understanding to continue. What you need is honesty with yourself. Honesty about needing rest, honesty about needing space, honesty about no longer wanting to live by standards that make you shrink. In this dissolution, you are learning a new way of living, not based on how much you accomplish, but on whether you are present, not based on recognition, but on whether you are standing in the right place for yourself. And as you begin to live from that foundation, a new steadiness forms, not loud, not dramatic, but deeply real. You may still feel tired, you may still have days of doubt, but if you look back, you will see that you are no longer returning to old paths. You may be slow, but you are not moving backward. And that says a great deal, because this journey is not measured by speed, but by how honest you are with yourself at every step. You are in a sacred process, whether you choose to name it or not. A process where the old must dissolve so the true can emerge. And even if the shape ahead is not yet clear, you can feel one thing with certainty. You are becoming more real, more grounded, and closer to yourself than ever before. When you have walked long enough through that state of dissolution, something very subtle begins to happen. You no longer search for signs, yet the signs begin to find you. Not loudly, not dramatically, just clear enough that you cannot deny them. A sentence you overhear by chance, yet it answers the very question you had not yet asked. A song plays at the exact moment you need to be reminded that you are not alone. A dream leaves behind a feeling so real, as if you just remembered something important. You begin to realize that a language is being used to speak with you, not through logic, but through resonance, not through commands, but through guidance. And when you stop trying to explain everything, you hear that language more clearly. It does not come to make you dependent. It comes to make you aware. A sentence echoes within you like a familiar invitation. Call to me, and I will answer you, and show you great and mighty things which you do not know. Jeremiah 33:3. These words are not a promise of grandeur, but a reminder that you are allowed to ask, allowed to seek, allowed to listen, and more importantly, allowed to trust that answers are waiting, even when you do not yet know how to name them. You begin to pay closer attention to very small moments. The way a quiet morning makes you feel lighter, the way a deep conversation brings you back to yourself, the way a difficult decision, when made from truth, carries peace even when the outcome is unclear. You realize that guidance does not always come as clear directions. Sometimes it comes as a feeling of rightness, returning again and again until you trust it enough to follow. You also notice that when you slow down and listen more, things that once confused you begin to arrange themselves. Not every question is answered right away, but you no longer need them answered to keep living. A new trust forms, not based on controlling everything, but on knowing that you are being guided step by step. You may begin to write down what you sense, dreams, thoughts that come and go but leave a trace behind, not to analyze them, but to remember that you have heard. Writing them down does not make the journey more sacred, but it makes you more present. It is how you tell yourself that you are no longer ignoring what touches your soul. You also begin to see more clearly what no longer belongs to you. Habits that once helped you escape no longer work. Environments that once made you feel valued now make you feel smaller. And instead of blaming yourself for changing, you begin to respect that truth. You understand that not everything that was once right must remain right forever. And letting go is not failure, but loyalty to what is alive within you now. You may notice that when you stop trying to prove anything, life begins to respond differently. Meetings become more timely. Opportunities arrive without force. Not because you became luckier, but because you became more aligned. You are no longer running ahead of guidance, nor falling behind out of fear. You begin to move in rhythm. You do not need to display this journey. It is not meant to be seen. It is an inner adjustment where you learn to live from your center instead of from outside pressure. And when you live that way, others can feel it, even if you never say a word. Not everyone will understand, but those who need to will recognize it. You may also realize that you need less validation than before, not because you have become cold, but because you have found a different anchor. You know when you are on the right path, not because someone applauds, but because inside you is calm. That calm does not come from everything being perfect, but from no longer betraying yourself. There will still be moments of doubt. There will still be days when you feel like you are walking through fog. But now, you do not panic the way you used to. You know that fog does not mean there is no path. It only means you need to walk more slowly, listen more carefully, and trust your own steps. And each time you do that, you move a little further without needing to see the entire road. You begin to understand that divine guidance does not take away your freedom. It clarifies it. You are not being pulled. You are being invited. And each time you say yes, even with a very small step, you feel a real support beneath you. Not always comfortable, but always enough to keep you from falling. You no longer need to know who you will become in 5 or 10 years. That is no longer the focus. The focus is who you are becoming in each moment you choose to live truthfully. And when you do that, the future arranges itself in its own way, not according to the script you once wrote, but according to the truth unfolding day by day. You are entering a phase where listening becomes your compass, not to avoid mistakes, but to know when to continue and when to pause. And when you learn to honor that compass, you no longer fear losing your way, because each time you listen and adjust, you return to your true center. The road ahead may still be unclear, but you no longer feel lost within that uncertainty. You know that a dialogue is taking place, not through words, but through life itself. And you are part of that dialogue, not as a spectator, but as one who is walking, responding, and living out what you have been called to be. Then there comes a moment when you realize you are no longer trying to become the right version in anyone's eyes. Not because you do not care, but because you have found your own center, a still point within where you are no longer pulled back and forth by expectations, fear, or the need for approval. You begin to live more slowly, but not stuck, more lightly, but not shallow. Everything you do feels less dramatic, yet far deeper than before. You no longer have to push your life forward with tense willpower. A current begins to carry you, not always smooth, but always with direction. Things that once required you to strain now arrive in a different way, not faster, but more timely. Not because you are more deserving than others, but because you have stopped resisting the rhythm meant for you. You realize that true strength is not in controlling everything, but in not panicking when you cannot. There are days when everything feels clear. There are days when everything feels blurred. But unlike before, you no longer rush to fill that space. You allow yourself to stay with uncertainty because you have learned that uncertainty is not an enemy. It is the space where something new can form. The relationships that remain in your life begin to change in quality. Fewer, but more real. No need for long explanations. No need to perform. You no longer have to shrink or exaggerate yourself to stay. And that brings a peace that feels strange and deep. You are no longer lonely in the old way because you no longer abandon yourself within those connections. You also begin to look back on your journey with different eyes. The dark stretches are no longer only pain. They become the places where you learned how to listen, how to stand firm, how not to lose yourself when everything collapsed. You no longer wish you had never gone through them. You can see clearly that without those moments, you would not have the depth to stand where you are now. Your life from the outside may not suddenly look extraordinary, but inside something fundamental has changed. You no longer live to escape emptiness. You live from a fuller place, not always happy, but grounded, not always confident, but real. And that truth begins to spread into the small corners of your daily life. You eat more slowly, you listen more carefully, you speak less, but more truthfully. You become more selective about what you allow into your space, not out of fear, but out of respect. You know that your attention is sacred, and you no longer give it away unconsciously. Each small choice becomes a way you affirm that you are living awake. There are days when you are still tired, still doubtful, still wondering if you are doing the right thing. But the difference is that you no longer let those questions pull you back into your old life. You allow them to exist, and then you keep walking. You do not need certainty to stay faithful to what you know is true. You only need enough honesty to not betray it. You stop searching for grand promises about the future. You begin to cherish very small moments where you feel you are living in rhythm. A quiet morning, a conversation without defense, a difficult decision that leaves your heart lighter. You understand that these moments are how life tells you that you are on the right path. This journey does not make you a perfect person. It makes you a more whole one. You are no longer divided between who you show to the world and who you feel inside. Those two parts begin to meet. And when they meet, a steadiness appears that you never knew before. You no longer need to name who you are, no titles, no labels. You simply live. And in the way you live, the light you carry speaks for itself. No need to prove, no need to promote. It is present in how you enter a room, in how you listen to others, in how you stay with truth, even when no one is watching. This is not the end of a story. This is the point where you begin to live that story with your own life. No longer as an idea, no longer as a vague calling, but as a reality unfolding each day. You do not know where everything will lead, but you know very clearly that you are no longer moving against yourself. And that, more than anything else, is the sign that you have heard, you have responded, and you are living in alignment with what called you here from the very beginning.
Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.